Good Lord, Father. Could we pray that this works out this time? Well, hello there. Please excuse the spontaneous, dramatic beginning of this video. Today we'll be talking about the books that I read in March and April. I read 3 books in March and 3 books in April, and I'm very, very excited to talk about them with you all today. The 3 books that I read in March were for the Codebird Award for Caribbean Young Adult Literature. I actually read 10 books, but only the top 3 books are going to be published. Therefore, I'm going to be talking about those alone. I was a judge. I was a guest judge, or the YA judge, and I was there to give my perspective as a Caribbean young adult, okay? I did a video about the whole experience and the awards ceremony. It was really, really fantastic, so I'll link that in the cards for you all. My job was to read the books that were on the long list that the other judges curated for me, and from that long list of 10, I helped them come up with a short list of 6, and from the short list of 6, we chose 2 finalists and 1 winner. So I'll be talking about those with y'all now. So I'll start with the first finalist, which won 3rd place, and that was Daylight Come by Diana McCauley. Y'all, this book is terrifying, right? It's dystopian, but it's really horror, right? Because what it does is it shows us how climate change will affect us in the future in the context of a dystopian story, particularly in the context of Jamaica, because Diana is a Jamaican author. It's a really interesting call to action, and what it shows us is that the whole idea of environmental degradation and destruction is just a lie. Because we are not destroying the environment, love. We are facilitating the environment's destruction of us. Let me tell you something about Mother Nature, okay? She petty. You keep putting trash on her planet, you keep putting nasty pollutants in her air, and she will come for your wigs. She will come for your future generations and will snatch everything and everybody up. We have a young girl called Sorrel who's from the lowlands, which are the more coastal areas, and she and her mother try to run away to the toplands, which are the more like habitable, cooler, more resourceful areas in the mountains that typically tend to have the more elite people of this dystopian society. I was on the edge of my seat because I wanted to know if sis was going to be okay, is her mother going to be okay? And you see throughout this story, Macaulay is dropping hints and telling you this is happening because of what is happening now. This is happening in the story, and this could potentially actually happen if we don't make an effort to change our habits and to change our outlook right now. And I loved it. It felt like a call to action in that sense, and I really, really appreciated what the author tried to do with that. She also kind of tried to address neo-colonialism in a way. I don't know if that was a little bit intentional, but she was throwing a little bit of shade at like the tourism industry and how, like, you know, the Americans America's burning up or whatever, so the Americans are coming on these big ships that used to be called cruise ships that they used to come on back in the day, and kind of showing how that very sort of neo-colonial relationship that countries of the Caribbean share with the more first world developed countries or whatever will continue to advance in its own ways as society crumbles. And that just shows us how, you know, we humans be doing shit. Maybe Mother Nature really needs to wipe our asses out and just like let us start over fresh or something. I don't know. That's for her to decide, not me. Really great book, gave it 4 stars. I also gave 4 stars to The Accidental Prize by Tamika Gibson. This came second for the award. Brilliant, brilliant book. I love Tamika Gibson because she writes young adult contemporary set in Trinidad, and her books are just so familiar to me. When I read these stories, when I read these characters, when I read about their struggles, when I read about what they're going through, I see myself, I see people I know, I see people I'm related to, I see my friends, I see people I went to school with. Like, it's just such an incredible thing to see yourselves in the books that you read. You know, there's so much value to these types of stories because seeing validation and seeing yourselves and seeing your experiences as Trinidadian youth, as Caribbean youth, is so important, and that in itself is like a motivating factor that would make us want to read more. And this book just makes me feel like, oh my god, there needs to be more YA contemporary about Trinidadians, because YA contemporary is my favorite genre, and it's nice to see my favorite genre merge with like something so familiar to me. That's why I really appreciate Tamika's books. This is her 2nd novel. I read her first book, Dreams Beyond the Shore, which is brilliant, by the way. The Accidental Prize focuses particularly on the experiences of 2 young teens, Joel and Kayla. Both of them are going through a lot of family stuff. Joel's parents are not very present in his life, both of them for completely different reasons. So he has this very close relationship with his grandmother and his coach. And then we have Kayla, who has kind of a rocky relationship with her dad, and she has a very interesting and kind of concerning dynamic going on with her aunt, who has an abusive boyfriend who kind of poses a threat to Kayla at some point. And I think that's where it's useful for me to say that this book does feature some violence and some difficult and dark themes, so definitely be aware of that if you're a little bit sensitive going into this book. But I have to say, I think Gibson did an excellent job at handling all of those themes. Her writing is almost to perfection. The characters' voices are done perfectly. The story, the narration, everything is so engaging about this. And if you like sports stories, you're probably going to like this one because it's actually focused on both of these characters separately, yes, but it also focuses on kind of their romance, but also their romance in the context of the fact that they're both on the same like track and field team. I don't really know the sports terminology to describe it, but they're both like runners and they're competing to get into the Olympics. And that's another thing I like about Tamika's books. They're always very high stakes. Like there's always like, it's never like a regular thing that everybody's going through every day. It always has something to do with politics or the Olympics or this or that. Like there's always a lot of high stakes, and there's a little bit of travel in this book as well. I think they go to Jamaica. I can't remember which other island they went, but they went to Jamaica at some point, so that was really nice. No, actually it was Antigua. I think they went to Antigua. They went to some other island. I gave The Accidental Prize 4 stars, and now I'm on to the final book that won the award for the Codebook Award for Caribbean Young Adult Literature, which was The Unmasked Girl by Janelle Franton. Janelle Franton is a Trinidadian author, so congrats to you. I'm so happy that you won the award. We ended up picking this book because we felt like it's the most palatable story, in the sense that we could see a young adult going to the library, opening up the book to chapter 1, and not closing it until they're done. That was my case, right? Miss Franton had me up wee hours of the morning like a wet chicken finishing this book. I wasn't going to stop until I was finished because it was that compelling and that gripping. And I think that just has to do with the fact that she's a talented storyteller. This is a story about a girl called Yara who's growing up on a planet called Mira. And Mira has like 2 tribes, and the tribes are distinguished based on their different like abilities, but also like the markings on their skin. Yara is born with no markings on herself. That's what's called the Unmasked Girl, right? And since she's born with no markings, she doesn't really know which tribe she belongs to, and she's adopted by one of the tribes when she was a baby, so she doesn't know who her real parents are, and she believes that she belongs to that tribe, and she tries to fit in, but people around her are telling her, no, you don't fit in, you don't belong here because you don't have the markings. You either belong to the warring tribe or you're just some weirdo from some other origin. And throughout the story, we get to see what she really is. We get to see what's really lurking, in her past, and it's such an interesting book because of the way that her story unfolds. There's so much different ways that you could read deep into this, but for me, the biggest thing that I got out of it was that this is a story about a girl who just naturally does not fit into the society that she wants to fit into, nor does she fit into the other category. We think of things as categories, right? You're either this gender or that gender, you're either this race or that race. We think of things in a very binary, very categorical way, and then there are some people who just don't fit into any of those categories. And they try to fit into some of them, but they ultimately don't achieve ultimate happiness because of that, and they face a lot of rejection from the people around them because people also see that they just don't fit into that category as well. So I think that this book has a really interesting little underlying discussion about that, and I found that to be a really interesting aspect of it as well. Really great message, really great story, fantastic characters, incredible writing, and just a really engaging plot. Definitely pick this one up. I gave this 4 stars as well. So those were all of the books that I read in March. Well, the 3 books that I could talk about at least. And as you could have tell, 2 of them didn't have covers. This one does because the books are generally not published by the time they win the award. Usually it's through winning the award they get the publishing deal. But Janelle already self-published her book, so props to you, sis. So now we're on to the books that I read in April. And first off, we have Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Bennet. I read this for Bashment Book Club, which is a book club hosted by myself, Linnell, and Paige. We had such a good time discussing this book, y'all. The live show's up on my channel. Definitely go watch that if you've read the book and you're okay with going into spoiler territory. This book is a lot, and it's difficult for me to accurately condense what this book is about in one little summary. So all I will say is that really this is about 4 women in Jamaica. We're focusing mostly on this woman called Margot, but we're also looking at her sister's story, her mother's story, and her girlfriend's story. Yes. Basically what's happening is that they live in this community called Riverbank in Jamaica, in Montego Bay, and there's a hotel that wants to extend where this community is, so therefore they face the threat of gentrification. The book deals with gentrification, the corrupt tourism industry, sex work, sexual assault, homophobia, colorism. Oh my god, y'all, this book touches on everything, trigger warnings for everything. I had a mental breakdown. That's another joke. I had a mental breakdown while reading this book. I had to put it down and I just started to cry. It's one that when you finish it, you're not going to feel happy, right? You're going to be like, shit, this world is messed up. But if you think you can handle the subject matter, please read it, because Nicole Dennis-Benn is such an excellent writer. Her writing is fantastic. Her characters are so well rounded and multi-dimensional. You would hate them one minute, you would love them one minute, you will empathize with them one minute, because you understand that these are very complex characters dealing with very complex life circumstances that they don't even have control over. And the book deals with so much themes and issues, right? I just listed them out for y'all. And you would think that, you know, it's like a checklist, and it's like, oh, homophobia here, sexism here, and you just have a book that's a bunch of themes and issues, and it feels like the author's being preachy or anything. Absolutely not. Nicole Dennis-Benn just blends everything together. She connects all of the themes. She connects all of the stories. She connects all of the lives of the people that we explore in this book. It's constructed to perfection. Everything coagulates so well. It doesn't feel like if she's overdoing it or that she's trying to explore too many different things, because the reality is these things do intersect, and they do, you know, combine and come together to make people's lives complicated. This is really, under it all, a story about 4 women who are experiencing the intersection of multiple types of oppressions. And in experiencing that, we see how they are grappling with the desire to get away from those oppressive systems versus the much easier, tempting decision to sort of advance themselves within those oppressive systems. I don't want to talk about it too much because I feel like it's something that you need to go in and read for yourself, but there's like a fork in the road type of narrative for all of these women. Do we transgress the system? Do we deconstruct the system? Or do we just go along with it and try to achieve as much success within it as we could, because that's a lot easier? And that's something that a lot of people all over the world grapple with, and I think that that's definitely something that would resonate with everybody, even if you're not from Jamaica. Also, it drags the tourism industry, and listen, tourism is amazing, it's natural, it's fantastic, but tourism in the context of a neo-colonial, you know, capitalist world, a racist, sexist, exploitative world, is inevitably going to be corrupt. And this book addresses that, it calls it out, and I appreciate it so much for that reason. Definitely read this book, I highly recommend it. Here Comes the Sun, there goes my wig. The next book that I have to talk about is Internment by Samira Ahmed. This is a young adult dystopian as well that also kind of functions as a call to action, but we'll get into that. It is such a scary book. It is a book about a near future America wherein Muslims are now being put into internment camps. Yeah, I know, oh my god. I feel like Samira was just writing one day, I was like, how can I terrify people? Yeah, this is a good idea. Let's write this book. Following our main protagonist, Layla. She is an Indian American Muslim. She and her parents get put into the internment camp. She's really grappling with the fact that she wants to get out, but it's so difficult to get out because the internment camp is so justified by the society surrounding them. And the people in the internment camp, the fellow Muslims that she's with, are starting to settle in and sort of accept the reality. And she's like, no. She's like, no, sis, we need to do something. So she's grappling with the fact that she wants to use her voice to get out. She just wants to get out. She just wants freedom. She wants the freedom that she's always experienced. And that's really the core, like, you know, plot of this story. So Samira Ahmed tries to do 3 things with this book, and I think she does them excellently. First of all, what she tries to do is she tries to show us that the xenophobia, the racism, the Islamophobia that, you know, really lurks in the underbelly of American patriotism, so long as those things continue to be nurtured in the way that they currently exist today, we could potentially have a society where maybe not something as extreme as this actually happens, but where something like this could potentially be justified, right? In doing so, she draws a lot of parallels to the contemporary Muslim experience, right, in America and in different parts of the world. When it comes to things like surveillance, when it comes to things like trying to disassociate yourself with Islam, even though you are a Muslim and you're proud of being a Muslim, but you don't want to kind of like, you know, acknowledge that you're a Muslim just for the sake of safety. God, y'all, that resonated with me so much. And what she shows us in doing that as well is that the contemporary experience and the dystopian experience, not just as genres, but as actual real lived experiences, are not mutually exclusive. But guess what? Muslims are living dystopian lives across the world, right? If you look at China, they're being put into internment camps too. If you look at, you know, Burma, if you look at Palestine, if you look at all over the world, Muslims are living in dystopian experiences that are also contemporary today experiences, right? So that is absolutely mortifying. Another thing that she tries to do with this book is she tries to make the camps an allegory for society. Now, when you're reading it, you might kind of be like, oh, it's just an internment camp. But if you really read deep into it, if you look at how the camp is structured, if you look at how people are separated and segregated, right? If you look at the kind of image that the camp leaders are trying to, perpetuate of the camp, you start to see, oh, this is literally how the institutions in our society work today. So I felt like that was really, really brilliant. Oh gosh, man, the rain coming to make noise. Sometimes I have to remind myself that rain is a blessing, and I just need to just kind of just have the patience. Alright, so I kind of snuck into my parents' room. You could probably still hear the rain, but the rain is definitely not as loud in here. So shout out to my mommy and daddy for allowing me to come into their room. Actually, they didn't. I didn't ask them. I just barged in. We were talking about internment, right? So I was talking about how it functions as an allegory for society, and I thought that that was done brilliantly and perfectly. Kind of reminded me of Us, the movie, in a way. Like, the book is not like that movie at all, but you know how Us kind of functioned a little bit as kind of like a little fairy tale to represent certain things about society and institutions in America particularly. I think Internment definitely does the same thing, but in a different kind of story. Finally, the last thing that I think that Samira Ahmed is trying to do is she's trying to tell us the importance of resisting and mobilizing a resistance. You must always speak up no matter how much backlash you face from the people at the top or from your own people, whether they're trying to do it for your own protection or whether they're doing it because they want to conform to the system. And in doing so, she also talks about the importance of mobilizing your allies, and not just mobilizing the people in your community, but mobilizing the people outside of your community who have privileges, who have access to resources, who can manipulate institutions, right, to help you strengthen your resistance, right? And I think that that was a really important aspect of this story as well. The only caveat I had with this book really was the characters. I just felt like I couldn't connect to any of them. Some of them were lacking a lot of dimension, especially the villain, like the guy who's the head of the camp, very mustache twirly. The two boys who she's in love with, so there's kind of like a love triangle going on in this book as well. These two boys, I felt like they were very much pawns in the plot. They felt like they were just devices to push the plot forward than they were like actual genuine characters in the book, and they could have easily been swapped out for like anybody else, like a concerned brother or cousin or friend or something, you know what I'm saying? It could have functioned better as like a trilogy. That way we would have had a lot more scope to explore the characters and certain aspects of the internment camp itself and the politics of the wider society, because we're really more so centered on the camp and not so much the wider society. I definitely still think though that regardless there's a lot of value in this story. I really enjoyed it. I was compelled. All of us in the live show really enjoyed it. I read this for Sassy Book Club, which the live show is on Miss Sassy Cassie's channel, so I'll link that in the cards as well. All of us really liked it, and we really appreciated the themes and the issues that it tried to address as well, because this is ultimately a story about justice, and the only thing that I'm seeking justice for, Samira, is my wig, because you snatched it. I gave this book a very loving 4 stars, and I definitely highly recommend it. Daddy, the phone ringing! Daddy! I don't even have access to the phone because... Okay, I think he answered. Alright, so the rain stopped. We're back in business. We're back in my room. And the last book that I have to talk about is my favorite book of the 2 months, my favorite book of the year so far, and only the second book that I gave 5 stars to for the year so far. That was Love From A to Z by S.K. Ali, which is actually an ARC that was sent to me in exchange for an honest review by the publisher. So thank you so much to Simon & Schuster. I already did a full review and a half an hour long reading vlog. 2 videos. So they will be linked. You don't need to hear much of my thoughts here. All you need to know is that this is a story about 2 young Muslim teens that focuses essentially on peace and justice. These 2 characters function as metaphors for peace and justice, but they're also just such full, beautiful, amazing, adorable characters. I love them so much. I never felt so much love for characters. Usually when I finish a book, I'm like, oh yeah, the characters, whatever, that was nice. In this book, I feel so much connection to them, especially Zainab. I love her so much. She's so confident. She's so uplifting. She's so, passionate about what she believes in. She is the mother that I never had. She is the sister that I always wanted. She is the friend that everybody deserves. I don't know a better person. I don't know a better person. Oprah knew what she was talking about. Oprah, you thought Oprah was talking about Gail says Oprah was talking about Zainab. Also, I appreciate her cultural background because she's half Pakistani, half Indo-Caribbean. It's so cool. It was so cool to see that she has Guyanese and Trinidadian heritage. And let me tell you something. She's half Pakistani, half Caribbean. You could imagine the history, the culture, the seasoning, the food in that household. The food in that household, you ain't gonna be getting no bland chicken when you go over by Zainab for Eid. Let me tell you something. This book addresses so many different things. Islamophobia, converting to Islam. It addresses multiple sclerosis. Our other main protagonist, Adam, has been recently diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and that's a huge part of the story as well. It's a story about family. It's a story about love. It's a story about friendship. It's a story about romance. It just made me so happy to see such a positive representation of Muslims out there. I can't do this book justice in a wrap up. You have to look at my review. You have to look at my review if you want to know my full thoughts on this. Anyways, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. In the comments down below, if you've read any of these books and you would like to share any thoughts on them, please do. I hope you have a lovely day, and until next time, inshallah, keep reading.